right, well, God, nice to have you with us on a frigid, in New York at least, Northeast, Tuesday radio program as we talked about what's going on as far as the world of sports is concerned on this third day of April, the year 2018. Hi, everybody, with Colin Schmeling and Eddie Erickson. Yours truly, Christopher Russo, will man the phones here for a little bit and get you home on this afternoon, wherever you may be. Lunchtime in L.A., dinner time later on, of course, in New York as we chat to you and get you going here on a busy afternoon. We got a busy week. Obviously, NCAA will sort of put a bow on that. Fred Couples later on the golf. He obviously has gotten a bird's eye view of Tiger and Mickelson in the last couple days. We'll talk to Freddie at 5:05. Looking forward to that. A conversation as far as the Masters are concerned. We'll get you home here now with a huge week in sports. You know, you're going to hear Frank Nobilo, Billy Andrade is going to check in. We got Ron Gidgey coming in studio. Barry Levinson, who's the director of the new Joe Paterno movie on HBO, played by Al Pacino. We'll get into that. He's going to join us in studio one day this week. We got all the Masters coverage. I just heard Steve and Danny tell you about the tee times. Tiger, of course, will play, basically late morning tomorrow or Thursday, and then same time, 1:30 or so on Friday. And Phil will flip it around and do the exact opposite. Dustin Johnson, by the way, has the last tee time of the day on Thursday, and then he goes the other way there on Friday. You know what's going on as far as the Masters are concerned. Sounds like weather good Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then a little chilly and maybe some threat of rain over the weekend. That's what I saw today. I know Steve basically had it 80 degrees on Sunday. I didn't see that. I saw more, in 58, 60. But regardless, the Masters, you like it better when it's warmer there and you hear, and it feels like springtime. You hate it when it's freezing in that joint. I remember once 18, 19 years ago with Vijay Singh winning. I mean, they froze when he won that tournament there in 2000. So hopefully that will not be the case, and hopefully we'll have a good weekend golf. We look forward to that. In the meantime, we'll get you home here and we'll put a bow on the NCAA. I'm not too sure what is there to say. Nothing controversial, that's for sure. Nothing overly dramatic, that's also for sure. The Villanova Wildcats are just too good. I mean, that's nothing really much to delve into. I mean, they were dominant throughout the NCAA tournament. You heard everybody tell you last night they never lost a game or never won a game by less than double digits. They had the one dangerous moment when they trailed West Virginia 60-54 early in the second half, or maybe a little, a third of the way through the second half there in the regional Sweet 16 game a week ago Friday. And what happened? They outscored West Virginia essentially the rest of the way 30-14 or 32-14. They scored, 36. They scored 90-78 that day. I mean, that's really the only scare that they had. They buried Alabama, close first half, no problem. Obviously, we just mentioned the West Virginia game. They shot very poorly against Texas Tech, and the game did get down to 5 in the second half, but you never felt the Red Raiders were going to win, and that was a night that Villanova was 4 for 24 or thereabouts from 3. They destroyed Kansas right from the get-go there on Saturday, when they made 1,000,000 threes in the first half. They make about 10 or 11 threes in the first half. They shot 18 for 40 for the game. And last night, although at times they were in a little trouble early, down by 7, really never a major issue as far as the Michigan game is concerned. I mean, they had a 9-point lead at the half. They jumped out right away with 3 quick baskets in the second half and essentially never looked back. I mean, this never looked back and killed Michigan. They gave them a real beatdown. Now, listen, I understand it wasn't a destruction with the score, but the game, again, you could have turned the game off with 7-8 minutes to go and not miss a thing. Obviously, you don't want to do that the day of the championship game because you want to watch one shining moment, and thankfully, TBS gave it to you a little earlier than normal. I think they got it at 11:45. You have to wait to the bitter end of their broadcast, and they did a good shining moment as they, that show. I love that little segment. So does everybody else. And they, Ernie threw to it at a moderate at a decent time, which you liked. But as far as the game is concerned, it really wasn't much to talk about. I mean, Villanova is just too good a team. I mean, they got experience. They can score with 5 positions. Throw in the fact that the kid off the bench, DiVincenzo, can do a great job as well. He had a phenomenal game yesterday. So they have 6 players on the court who can score. Brunson scored early and then did nothing in the game. And as a result, no hiccup whatsoever. I mean, Bridges does what he does. He scores 19 points. Pasquale, who played played great. In the Kansas game, was a little quieter last night. They didn't need him. Spellman is what he is. I mean, the team is just a hell of a team. I mean, that's just all there is to it. They got some size. They have some experience. They got some freshmen with new blood. Spellman's a freshman. I mean, there's just an awful lot to like about the Villanova team. Throwing the fact they got a very good coach. It's not about him. You know, he coaches it almost a little bit like an NBA team. He lets them do what they want offensively. They take a lot of threes. He basically gives them carte blanche from the perimeter. They play good defense. I mean, the players play hard for him. He's got it going there at Villanova. He's one of the great guys. And I know, listen, if he goes out with Steve Torrey, he's one of the great guys. This is one of the good guys you're going to meet in college basketball. He coached Hofstra for a number of years. I was involved in the Hofstra little program out there in Hempstead forever and ever and ever. Uniondale, did a lot of their games, did some championship games in the American East Conference 2 years in a row that I can recall. Once against Delaware, I forget who the other one was against. He was as good as gold then. He's always been a classy guy. I don't see any reason why he would leave. You want to stack him up now historically. We can have some fun with that today if you wish to. But overall, Villanova's, they remind me a lot of University of Florida. I don't know why. I was thinking about that last night. Florida had those 5 good starters, pretty good pro. A couple of them are good pros. Horford's been a pretty good pro. Noah had his moments in the NBA. Obviously, the other kid, Brewer's been there forever, Corey Brewer. And they had enough other things going on with that team that they were able to win those championships, and they won them back-to-back, and they stayed together. And obviously, as good as it gets, that Florida team was efficient. They were a machine. And Villanova reminds me a little bit of that team. I've been thinking about that for a few days. Remember, that Florida team, if I'm not mistaken, did they beat Villanova that year? Maybe they may have not. I'd have to look on Jay at Villanova that year they played Florida. I know Villanova lost to Georgetown the year they got the semifinals. That may be the game. And maybe they did play Florida, too. I'd have to go back and look those games. But Florida was a very efficient Billy Donovan coach team, and they won it back-to-back. And this Villanova team reminds me a lot of that team. It really does. It reminds me a lot of that team for whatever the reason. I don't know. I don't have any specific comparisons to make, but they seem to know their roles, this Villanova team. That Florida team knew exactly what each person was going to do at all times. They kind of shared the ball. This Villanova team does the same exact thing, with the exception of Booth, who's not that great, and he can sometimes take bad shots. They all, can make jumpers. They all spread it around. This is a very, very good team. I mean, and again, they dominated this NCAA tournament. They would have beaten Duke. I mean, we all know that we wanted to see Duke and Villanova. They would have beaten Duke. I think Duke in a 7-game series would have beaten Kansas 4-2, but they didn't get Kansas in a 7-game series, and Villanova would have beaten Duke too. And Michigan, let's face it, we knew going into this tournament that they were in a very easy bracket. That West bracket had Xavier, a very weak 1 seed. We all felt that way. We weren't speaking out of school. North Carolina was a little indifferent, not great. They were the 2 seed. There wasn't a lot out there in that West bracket. It blew up. Michigan got a couple of huge breaks. They made a big basket against Houston when the kid made missed 2 free throws. They got A&M off a cross-country trip and a short work week. They obviously beat Florida State, who can't score. I mean, they really, really had a nice... And then they beat Loyola, who was sitting there for them in the Final Four. And I'm not knocking Loyola, but Loyola not a great team by any stretch of the imagination. So they had a lot going for them going into the championship game. But you knew last night, they were going to have to play a near-perfect game, make a lot of shots, and hope they got Villanova on a quiet night. And for a while, it looked like they may have a chance to keep it competitive because they did play relatively close in the first half and had that lead. But eventually, the talent's gonna, it's gonna pull its way through. Very, very efficient championship game. I was thinking about the North Carolina-Michigan State game a few years ago at Ford Field. You remember that North Carolina team that was very, very that Hansborough team that was very, very efficient. And I remember we had Boeheim on. I was here at Sirius then. We had Boeheim on the day of the game, and Boeheim said there's no way that Michigan State's going to win, even if they're at home. And I kind of feel the same way last night. Very similar, same kind of team in the Big Ten, playing a big team like Carolina. Villanova's a big team, and away you go. So, listen, that's 2 championships for him. He's been in a Final Four. Another time, matter of fact, Carolina beat Villanova in that Final Four that year. He's been in a Final Four another time. I mean, he's had his hiccups last year, Wisconsin. Before that, he had some issues. But he's got it going right now. I think if you talk about the top 6 or 7 coaches coaches in the sport. I mean, obviously, Calipari, Roy Williams, Krzyzewski. You got to put Bill Self in there. You still have to put Izzo in there. And Jay Wright's got to be in there right now. You can even put him higher than some of these guys. He's got more titles than Self. He's got more titles than Izzo. Izzo's only got one championship, so does Self. Calipari's only got one championship, too. People don't realize that. Calipari's only got one title. Now, he's been to a million Final Fours, and he should have a couple of more because, he blew a game for Memphis, and, he took 3 different teams to Final Fours in UMass, Memphis, and Kentucky, but he's only got the one championship. People don't realize that. Now Jay's got 2. So if you look at the coaches with multiple championships on the board in college basketball, Pitino had a couple, but he's no longer around. How many guys got more than one championship? We know Krzyzewski and Roy do. Who else? There's probably somebody else I'm missing, but I don't know who else has got more than a couple championships or got more than one championship. Izzo's only got 1. Been to a million Final Four. Calhoun's got 3, but he's retired. And then Ali won another one. So I don't know where else you can go to find somebody else who's. Is only 3 coaches currently right now who got more than one championship in college basketball? Is that true? I'm just talking on top of my head. I think that might be accurate. Which because Patino's out, Calhoun's out. I don't know. Knight's out. I don't know where you're going. Is there anybody in the Big Ten that I missed? Beeline's been to 2 championship games without a title. Is there anybody? Boeheim's only got 1 championship, and that's it for Boeheim. He beat Kansas. He's lost some championship games. He lost Indiana. He lost to Kentucky, but he's only got 1 championship. So a lot of the long guys who've been around forever, and there's about 7 or 8 of them. Self's been around for a long time. He's got 1 title. That's it. He won 1 championship with Kansas. He's playing some championship games, but he's got 1 championship. Think about it for a minute. Jay right now has as many championships under his belt that Calipari and Self have combined. That's amazing when you think about that for a minute. He's got 2, and they only each got 1. No, Calipari won with that great Anthony Davis team. Now, he certainly could have won a couple of more because he had that great team a few years ago and he got picked up by Wisconsin. He lost to Connecticut in the final. He lost to Kansas in the final. He lost to Kentucky in a Final Four. He lost to Connecticut Billy Donovan's got a couple of championships, but he's in the NBA. I don't know who else has got it. I think there's only 3 guys in the sport right now who have 2 titles. So that tells you where right now they're 2 titles recently. They're not spread out. It's only in the last couple of years, but Jay's not. I don't think Jay's going to the NBA. Jay's too smart to go to the NBA. He knows what the NBA is about. He'd only want to go to a good team, and most NBA jobs that open up are bad teams. They're not good teams. I don't see. Maybe he could go. I don't know what's going on in OKC. I think Jay could go to a good team and give it a whirl. But he's got it really moving right now at Villanova. They got to, he does what you want to do at that kind of place. He stays away from the one and done, and he gets very good players who are sort of bench players in the NBA, who will make a team, but for the most part, not be a big player. Kentucky do get the great player who are going to be big players in the NBA, so they want to leave after a year. Jay gets the NBA guy who will make an NBA team, but realizes that if he goes out too soon or gets on the wrong team, he's going to have a very short career, so they have a tendency to stay a little longer. Now, Bridges might be a little something different because he's got a lot of things you like. He can shoot threes, he's tall, got long arms, the whole bit. He might be different, but that's the sort of guy that Jay gets. So, I think because of that, he's in a perfect situation. He gets the best player who isn't a one and done. Gets the best player. Kansas gets good players too, but Kansas has some one and done guys. Jackson's a one and done. Ben McLemore is a one and done. They get some one and done guys. Jay doesn't get that. Whether he doesn't recruit those kids, I don't know. He doesn't get those kind of kids. Brunson's a junior. Bridges is a junior. DiVincenzo's not going anywhere for a while. Spellman's going to play another year or 2. Pasquale's a transfer. He's not going anywhere. He gets those kind of guys. He's got it going. And a methodical championship. And one other thing, before we get your calls in, you can tell that the booth is a very jovial booth. Now, I don't think Grant Hill's great myself. I don't think he's great. He never really tells me anything that I don't know. I don't think he's a great analyst myself. Now, he's a great guy, and he's pleasant, and he fits in well with the combo. But as far as on his own, he doesn't tell me anything. But the booth as a whole, with Rav and Nance and Grant in the middle of it, is a very happy-go-lucky, they all love each other's company kind of booth, if you notice that. You even noticed it last year when, at the end of the game last night when Nance was off to the Masters and Bill wished him luck. And Nance said, I'm looking forward to doing it next year again to the three of you guys. And Bill said likewise. They get along. And when a booth is that friendly, it comes across on the air as a good broadcast. And it is. 17 after the hour, 18 after the hour. We continue. Busy program today. Freddie later, you and I next here on Mad Dog.